Hey everyone, welcome to the Racing Writers Podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Crandall. On today's episode, a sit-down with Ryan Truex from the Camping World Truck Series. Ryan is, of course, the younger brother of Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series driver Martin Truex Jr., and this year Ryan is competing full-time in the Truck Series with Hattori Racing. He's wheeled the number 16 to 11 top 10 finishes in 19 races, and he continues to knock on the door of victory lane. Ryan and I tackled a variety of topics, from this season's performance to how hard he's worked to catch a break, and even some fun ventures he has going for him off the track with a clothing line and different things that he likes to do, kind of run his own business. Ryan was also a good sport about the many mix-ups he's had with his name, which I'm sure many of you have heard or seen on social media. We've also talked about his family tree, which we certainly got a good laugh at, once again going back to the mix-up of his name. So here now is my conversation with Ryan Truex. Here with, let's see, Ryan Martin Truex Jr. Sr. the third, right? Did I cover it all?
I'm done with this interview.
How did that start? Just as a side note.
I have no idea. I think commentators started doing it on accident.
Yeah.
And then reporters started doing it, and now once the fans got wind of it, everybody started joking, and now it's just a thing. So. But
it is a joke, right? There's nobody who seriously thinks that you are.
I don't know. I'm sure there is plenty of people. I mean, there's plenty of people that ask me how my dad's doing, and then they say he's having a really good run this year in that 78 car. So.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so apparently he had me when he was 12, and that's just how that went.
Oh my goodness. Well, thanks for taking the time. I appreciate it. How does it feel? I mean, you've made it this far into the season. You are a full-time driver in the Truck Series. I mean, it's got to feel good that, last year you had hopes of doing the same thing, but it's got to feel good to have made it this far, be a full-time driver.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's been frustrating too. Just missing the playoffs was tough, but the fact that we were there to begin with was, I think, a huge feat for us, being a first year full-time team and running as good as we are. I mean, we're a threat to win every week, which says a lot about how far we've come.
Go back to you mentioned the playoffs. How much did that sting? I mean, you guys ran so well during the regular season. There was a few times where you came so close to breaking through to victory, and then to have it come down to, it was tiebreaker, I believe. Tiebreaker at Chicago. Mm-hmm. I mean, how much did that sting?
It was tough.
You handled it very well, to your credit.
Well, honestly, I've had a lot more, I've had more disappointing things happen. I've been close to winning races, and that's part of racing, and I've learned that in the past 6 or 7 years. The fact that I got a full-time ride this year was huge for me, and I didn't sign up till January. Same with our crew chief, Scott Zipadelli. So we got a really late start, honestly, and we didn't have the trucks or the equipment we wanted when we started the year, and Daytona was a disaster. We ran 2 laps and wrecked, so we didn't get off to a very good start. In Atlanta, we didn't run very well either, and that was just a product of getting started late and not having what we needed for the first few races. I felt like Charlotte and Kansas, we built a new truck, I think, for Kansas, and that's when we started to show speed. And honestly, since then, we've just gotten better and better, and we've been a top 5 truck. There's been times where we've been off a little bit. I think the only race we've really had since then that we've struggled was Bristol. Aside from that, we've been really good everywhere. So we've made a lot of gains, which is huge. So to even say that I was close to making the playoffs and close to winning, I think feels good.
So coming into the season, as late a start as you all got, the goal from the beginning was win races and contend for the championship.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a realistic goal for this team. Even as a single truck team, getting a late start as you did.
Yeah. We set high expectations, and honestly, I didn't know if we'd be able to reach them after the first few races because things just got off to such a rocky start. But as we got better and Scott understood what I needed, and I understood how to communicate that with him, and we started to get speed, then we get confidence, then everything started to gel, and we kind of fine-tuned all the little things, and everybody learned what their job was and how to do it most efficiently. I think we've really hit our stride on that stuff in the past few races, and that shows because we've qualified really well. We've got 2 poles. I think we've led laps in the last 4 races, so we've definitely got momentum on our side, and we've hit our stride. Honestly, I feel like if we could start 2018 the way we are now, we'd easily make it, to Homestead, just based off of how well we run and how many stage points we'd be able to gain and all that stuff. So it's tough that we missed it, but I think there's a lot of good things going forward.
I'm fascinated by the dynamic or just the whole, this organization in general. You once said that Shiggy, your team owner, Hattori, kind of flies under the radar.
Yeah.
But from everything I can tell, he has a real passion for racing. What has it been like getting to know him over the last year or so?
It's cool. He's very hands-on, maybe sometimes a little too much. This year we've been able to get the right people in place to handle all the little things and allow him to really step back and focus on handling all his sponsorship deals that he has from Japanese companies and yeah, if he's not at the shop, he's in Japan, so he's constantly working.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah,
if he's not here, he's not.
There's times where I've seen him fall asleep just sitting at a competition meeting or something because he was up all night because of the different hours in Japan, and he's constantly communicating back and forth with them. So he's definitely very passionate. This is what he does. His race team is first on his list. So when you got somebody like that, it kind of just gives a trickle-down effect to everybody. They all see how hard he works, and they want to emulate that.
And he's a businessman as well, so
Yep.
Like you said, if he's not here, he literally is not here. He is in Japan. Does that take a little bit of weight off your shoulders in the sense that he's out there working very hard, not only to keep his organization going, but to put partners on your truck?
Yeah.
Does that lift a little bit of weight on your shoulders?
Yeah,
knowing
that's huge, and the fact that he's had me drive for him the past 2 years, with the amount of work he's put in and the financial side of things, he's invested a lot in the team. So it feels good to be able to kind of return that and get him good finishes, and hopefully we can get him some trophies soon.
Ryan, if you could give some insight into kind of how the team works. I believe on their Facebook page, it says they only have 12 employees. Is that correct? How does this team, I guess, operate the way it does? What can you give some insight into, a single truck team? It's already small to begin with, but just how small is this team?
It's a lot of long hours. Honestly, from the top up, it's a very tight-knit group. Mike Ricci, who's basically the general manager, he's in control of everybody, and he's the one who really put the group together. And I've known him since I can remember. He was part of my dad's Bush North team back in the 90s, so I've known him for a really long time, and he's a Northeast guy. And all the guys that work in the shop and work on the car, most of them I've worked with before. Some are from my K&N East team at MWR, and Scott Zipadelli I've known for a long time and worked with him a little bit at Robbie Benton's Xfinity team. So we worked with each other a little bit, and he's good friends with Gricci, and he's another Northeast guy. So it's more of like a family than anything, which kind of gives it more of like an old school feel. And like I said, everybody knows their part and does it well. So it's cool to see everybody kind of stay in their lane. You don't really see a lot of, I don't want to say not arguing, because there's a lot of that, because it's like a family.
Yeah.
And
you'll have that.
But there's a lot of thick skin. So you're not going to hurt each other's feelings, which I think is big. Scott's not going to come over the radio and say something that's going to make me mad or upset or anything, and vice versa. And really the whole team's that way. So I think it works really well.
Having said that, how, being a small team and everybody putting in such long hours, how are you able to run as well as, how is this team succeeding, I guess? I mean, not that you shouldn't be, but as you said, I mean, you came into the season thinking that some of the expectations and the goals that you guys had might have been a little too lofty. So how have you been able to do this?
I think it's just all people. It doesn't matter how good your equipment is if you don't have the right people working on it and figuring stuff out. You're not going to get better. So that's a big part of it. Scott has a lot of knowledge from his days in with Red Horse, and he's been a Toyota guy for a while. So we've been able to get a lot more TRD support and wind tunnel time and all that kind of stuff, which that helps a lot. I don't have just one thing that I can point out. It's just everything has gotten better. All the people are better, the equipment's better. We've been able to build new stuff, which that's been Shiggy being able to financially invest a lot to build new equipment, and there hasn't been anything we've needed that we haven't been able to get. So that's really been big for us. Yeah, I mean, it's just a little bit of everything. It all adds up. And there's been mistakes that we've made throughout the year that I feel like we've given up chances to win a few times just from beating ourselves. But really the past 4 or 5 races, we haven't done anything. We really haven't done anything wrong. Some of the races haven't played out the way they should for us, which I guess that's more luck than anything. But we've put ourselves in position to win, which is all you can do. And we're getting closer and closer. So we just keep doing that and being up front. There's a good chance we'll win soon.
Is there any race in particular that stands out that you wish you could have back?
Probably Dover. We were really good at Dover. That was early in the year, and that's my favorite track. It's my home track. I had a lot of friends and family there, and my sponsor actually sponsored the race. So there's a lot of cool things going on, and I missed the pole by like 1,000th or something like that.
Oh, yeah, it was close.
Which I really wanted that. But that was when the 29 truck had a wheel fly off, and the caution came out.
Yes.
And that was right after I pitted, so I got trapped a lap down,
mm-hmm.
which completely killed our day. I think we finished 10th a lap down. So I'd say if I could have that one back and maybe the 29 not have a wheel fly off, that's probably the one I'd pick.
Yeah. So let's just back up a little bit. How exactly, because you had mentioned not meeting Shiggy right away, but you ran races for this team last year. How did this partnership kind of come together and land you in the 16 truck?
Well, last year going into Daytona, I didn't have a ride at all. It was January. I was still trying to find something. There really wasn't much. There wasn't really anything out there, honestly. And a friend of my dad's worked at the team at the time, and it's somebody I'd worked with before, and he just mentioned me to Shiggy and some of those guys, and I went in there and met with him, and they literally handed me a NASCAR license application when I met them, and I signed it, and that was my license to drive at Daytona. And that's how it happened. And we finished second at Daytona, and it just kind of snowballed from there. We tried to run the full deal, and it didn't work out. But I think just being able to go out and prove myself right away was big for Shiggy. He thrives on performance, and
he was very happy after that race.
He was very, very happy. So he's been happy a lot this year, which is cool. He always
gives you a little bit of job security too,
right?
Yeah,
exactly. With Shiggy, I think if you prove yourself, he's going to do everything he can to stay behind you, and I think that's been huge for us.
You are a 2-time K&N champ, which amazingly is the last time you ran a full schedule before this year.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to those championships, it was back-to-back in 9 and 10 or 10,
yep,
11?
9 and 10.
9 and 10. And when that happened, Ryan, did you think, okay, this is what's going to boost me to the next level?
Yeah, I thought so. I was with MWR, I was with a cup team. I had good people behind me, which is how I was able to win the championships. It was most of those guys are at this team now, so I had good people and good equipment, and I was being developed. I was a development driver, and I had a full-time Xfinity deal to race with MWR going into 2011,
mm-hmm.
which ended up falling apart like December, which that's very bad timing. And luckily, that was when the whole deal with Pastrana happened, and it formed Pastrana Waltrip Racing, and he was going to be my teammate, and we were going to split the car, the 99 car. So I ended up running 9 or 10 races, I think, with no sponsorship. The team fully funded it, just with hopes of running well and attracting some sponsorship. And we struggled a bit, and right near the end, like the last 2 races, we ran really, really well. Finally got the momentum, and I got the confidence I needed and could figure the cars out, and then we shut the team down. right when we started running good. So that was kind of how my Xfinity career started,
yep.
Which not really a good foot to start on. And since then, it's been a lot of the same, bouncing around between teams, having sponsorship to run a one-off race, ran some races with Gibbs at the end of that year, and part-time the next year, 5 or 6, I think. And that's really been it the past few years. It's just bouncing around a lot, not really having a home, not really having a team. The biggest thing is not having a team to develop me like I had at MWR. Even little things like media training. They had me doing stuff like that all the time. Meeting with sponsors, just doing all the little stuff behind the scenes and the stuff you don't really see from the outside looking in. So when that whole deal kind of fell apart, I was really on my own. And I'd driven for some cup teams and things like that, but as far as the development side, that was all me. Just kind of learning on my own and getting experience. So I think having Martin helped a lot, because I could lean on him for that experience that I didn't have. But that was the toughest thing for sure, was not really having a home and a real, I didn't really have a tie to any manufacturer at that point. I was I drove a little bit of everything, honestly. So when I came into this deal and I was able to get, reunite with Toyota, start to get TRD support, honestly, Furniture Row, the guys there have helped me a lot, just teaching me things and kind of taking me under their wing. And I talk to Cole Pern and Martin and those guys all the time, anytime I can, even if it's just a little thing you can pick up on for a race weekend, it helps. So all that's huge. You see a lot of these young guys come up, they have an entire team behind them to help them develop, which I just haven't had that. So I'm finally getting to the point where I have that, and I'm definitely more appreciative of it now than I was when I was 18 years old.
You mentioned something really interesting there with the MWR dynamic of things that they were able to teach you away from the racetrack, like the media training and things like that. How important, maybe if you didn't know it at the time, how important is stuff like that for a younger driver? To behind the scenes kind of be thrown stuff that you'll experience that when you're at the racetrack or just in this job in general that you may not think about because your focus is on driving race cars.
Yeah, well, I didn't think of any of this when I started racing. I thought you just win and you keep moving up. And when I got into the K&N East Series, I'd never done an on-camera interview in my entire career. I'd only been racing. I started racing when I was 15, so I'd been racing 2 years. And I never did an interview before that. So when I got thrust on the scene in Greenville in 2009 and had to do interviews, and then we started winning races and I'm on TV all the time, I was completely clueless on what I was doing, which looking back is pretty embarrassing. But
right,
it's tough to get thrown into that world when you're 16 and you haven't really done anything. So yeah, that was huge for me, being able to actually go to school really and learn all that stuff. And it's pretty treacherous stuff. Like, you have to do interviews and then watch yourself on camera and listen to yourself. It's horrible. It's really, really bad. I hate it a lot.
Like, even being in the media center, or sometimes like if they use your clips on TV, or
you got to hear yourself ask questions.
Or when you go back, you have to try and transcribe something.
It's the worst.
It's the worst, isn't it?
Yeah, there's nothing worse than hearing your own voice.
Exactly. I am completely there with you. So
you have to listen to this whole thing and listen to yourself.
Yes, and I'm going to have to go back and edit it. Yeah, it's torture. I don't know why I wanted to get into this podcasting business.
That's rough.
You mentioned having an Xfinity ride and then it shut down in December. You have been, as you also mentioned, you've been a little bit of everywhere. You were connected to Waltrip and even Petty and Gibbs, and you've been around quite a while. You have bounced around, as you said. Mm-hmm. Aside from that Xfinity deal that didn't come together, was there ever a time where you thought any other one of those teams that you were with that maybe something could come of that?
Yeah, definitely. My time at Gibbs, honestly, was really good. I had, the Xfinity Series has changed a lot since I ran it in 2012 with Gibbs. It seems like they're definitely, I don't really know, I think they're just more dominant now than they were back then, but in a different way. I don't know. I don't really know what I'm talking about, honestly. But it was good when I was there, and a lot of the races I ran, either Kyle or Joey were running too. And that was back when Carl Edwards was running the full deal and Brad was running the full deal. So those guys were out there every weekend. It didn't matter where we were racing. If it was a standalone, they were still there. So honestly, I learned a lot from those guys, and I raced a lot with those guys when I was in the Gibbs cars, especially Carl and Brad. And I was able to talk with them a lot, before and after the races, and they were able to, tell me what I was doing wrong or what I was doing right, things like that. I'll never forget, I think it was 2011 at Richmond. We had to start last I was in a Gibbs car. We ended up finishing fourth, and I raced with Carl most of the end of the race, like the last 10 or so laps. And he came over after the race and talked to me and told me what I did wrong and what I did right, and told me I did a good job, that was huge for me. It's Carl Edwards. He's one of the best. He's probably one of the best to never win a Cup championship. So to have stuff like that happen was really cool. And honestly, that year I thought I ran well enough to maybe earn a full-time ride. And we tried our hardest, and we tried everything we could to put sponsorship together to run that next year with JGR full-time, and we're just never able to do it. After that, just kind of same thing, went back to bouncing around, ran some Cup stuff.
Yep.
And here I am.
Has it been surprising, Ryan, at this point? I mean, how long you've been doing this, the credentials that you have, the people you've been able to impress, the people who've gone to bat for you. I mean, you mentioned drivers you've talked to. There's people all over the garages and other drivers. People have spoken very highly of you and your talent. Has it been surprising, though, that you have not been able to find a partner who's latched on and said, okay, here we go, we're going to go for a ride?
I mean, it definitely when I was younger, it did. I kind of accepted it now. There's I just keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And
I guess you kind of get to that point where you're like, well,
all you're doing is wasting time thinking about it, honestly. And especially this year, I've not thought about it at all. Like, I don't know what I'm doing next year, but I'm not worried about it, honestly. Which, in the past, I was more focused on what I'm going to do next year, what's next, than I think I was on the present. So now I just take it one race at a time, honestly. I'm not really even thinking about Martinsville coming up next. I'm just focused on tomorrow, which a few years ago I'd already be thinking about what I'm doing next year, and I'd honestly be more frustrated seeing other guys get rides that I feel like I'm better than anything, which that's probably one of the toughest things for me coming up, was sitting on the sidelines while other guys are getting huge opportunities. It definitely can make you jealous, but I've kind of just accepted that at this point and just do my own thing.
Does seeing what Martin has gone through, in the sense of he ran very well at some places, obviously had the whole MWR thing happen, struggled a little bit at Furniture Row when they first got started, and now he's at the top every single week. Yeah. Does seeing what he go through, obviously he hasn't been out of the car like you have, and you've been bouncing all around, but does seeing kind of his perseverance in a way, does that motivate you, or do you have days where you're like, I don't know how much longer I can do this?
No, I mean, I've been there before when I've been running, just kind of riding around with no hope of having a good finish with backmarker teams and things like that. But I think it gives me time. I mean, it shows me that patience is big, and it really, that's what's helped me focus on now and not later like I used to, because he's been in Cup now for 11 years, I think, and he's just now finally getting everything he needs to win races and compete for championships. And I feel like he's had good teams, he's had good crew chiefs, he's had a lot of good opportunities, but it takes all of that aligning at once, which he's been close. I think he was close to having that at MWR. It took a few years, but 2013, I thought they really started to hit their stride. And there was probably 3 or 4 races that year that he could have won that he had slipped away for whatever reason, late caution or a bad pit stop or something like that. But he'd proven himself as a driver. He just needed all that other stuff to fall into place, even just to have the good luck at the end of the races and not have that debris caution with 3 laps to go, or have a blown tire with 10 to go or whatever. And we started to see that a little bit in 2015, a lot last year. Really all they didn't have last year was the luck, and now it seems like they have that too. Even last week at Charlotte, I thought they were in trouble, honestly. I didn't even want to watch the race because he was like 15th and had no shot at winning, and 100 laps later he's leading the race with 20 to go and he's about to win it. So, and even with that late caution and pit stop and restart, they were flawless. And if that were 5 years ago, I don't know if that would be the case. So I think he's definitely gotten a lot better, a lot more mentally strong, and I think all of those letdowns and close calls and all that makes you mentally stronger. So looking at all that, I feel like I can learn from that, and I mean, I've been close to wins myself in Xfinity and trucks, and it definitely makes you tougher. It gives you thicker skin, and I think you have to lose a couple before you can really appreciate winning.
Do you feel like if an opportunity came along that you are just as good as anybody else, that you could go make it at the Cup level? Yep, absolutely.
I just need the opportunity. Mm-hmm. I feel like I have the experience and everything it takes at the Cup level. I just need that team. I need that sponsor. I need those things to get behind me so I can, go out and just focus on my job.
The most important parts.
Yeah, exactly.
What have you learned in your talks with Cole and Martin and being around the Furniture Row team, in terms of, have you been able to apply it to your own racing, or maybe things mentally that they've helped you with?
It's a little bit of everything, really. As far as like the car to truck stuff, there's really nothing there.
Right.
Honestly, it's the Cup Series and Truck Series are so different now. Really, the only thing we have the same is the tires. At some tracks, we run the same tire, so that's something I can get from them sometimes. Really, I get a lot more track info than anything from them, just because most of these places they've already gone once, and we only go most places once. So, especially like mile and a halves, Martinsville is a good example. They run really well there. So, there's just little things you can pick up on, and Cole's a really smart guy, so he's really easy to talk to, and he's down to earth.
Yeah.
Really, all those guys are. I think that's what makes him so good. Yeah, it's a little bit of everything, honestly.
You are sporting one of Sherry's bracelets.
Yeah.
The Never Give Up bracelet.
Uh-huh.
I've heard that you actually you're very involved with Martin and the foundation and things that he and Sherry have going on. You enjoy doing stuff like that?
Yeah, I try to help as much as I can. Obviously they do a lot. So they have a lot of people that help them, and it's definitely it's a good cause, and it's something I'm glad to be a part of, and there's definitely, there's a lot you can do outside of the car to support them. There's a lot you can do in it, and it puts everything into perspective, honestly, when you can see all the stuff they're going through, and really it makes your day a lot easier, because you're not having a rough day at the end of the day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you could see what these kids go through, what Sherry's gone through, it makes a rough day at the track a lot better.
I've heard, and I'm interested to get your side of it, that you watch the Cup races, you enjoy watching Martin, but not the plate races.
I hate them.
Is that true?
Yeah, I probably won't even watch Sunday, honestly.
Yeah.
So
you're all for brotherly love and supporting.
I'll follow along on Twitter.
Yeah. But it's too stressful to see it for yourself.
Yeah. I hate watching them, honestly. If he's not in it, I'm fine. And if I'm in it, whatever, I enjoy the plate races, racing them. But yeah, watching it for me is way too stressful.
Yeah. So be honest with me. How many times have you done interviews like we are right now, and I ask about Martin, you get asked about Martin? Does that bother you?
I'm used to it.
Yeah.
It's gotten a lot worse this year.
Really?
Oh yeah. Well, look how good he's running.
And everybody has to get your opinion, right?
Says your dad's doing so good in the 78. Let's talk about him.
I'm sorry. That's the funniest. I hadn't heard that one before. I honestly hadn't.
Oh yeah, all the time.
I guess so let's talk about
But
this.
here's the thing. People will be like, so how's your dad doing? And I think they're talking about my actual dad.
Right.
I'm like, oh, he's good. He's here this week. He's got a new boat that he's been on a lot. So I'm like, yeah, he's out on his boat fishing or something. It's like, oh, doesn't he have to race this weekend? I'm like, jeez. My brother is not the 78 driver. My dad's not the 78 driver.
I was going to say, and it probably doesn't help. Let's talk about this. The Throwback Thursday picture that you posted of
good.
You and Martin, it was phenomenal. But I guess that doesn't help a little bit, because you can truly see the age difference.
Yeah.
Martin is,
He's like 15 or 16, I think.
But he comes across a little bit older sometimes.
Yeah.
And he's sitting
He's
there
got gray
talking
hair.
on the telephone.
He's 37 and he's got like 80% gray hair.
You did that to him then.
No.
If you're the
I'm already
son.
getting gray hairs too. My dad had like a full head of gray hair when he was like 40, so there's nothing we can do about it.
Oh my goodness. But the Throwback Thursday picture was phenomenal. So that was from, I think you tagged it was the 90s.
Yeah, I think it was before he started racing modified, so it had to be like, I don't know, 96, 97.
Yeah.
All those trophies on the wall were New Egypt, which is
I was going to say
those are go-kart trophies.
Bunch of trophies in there.
You couldn't race modifieds, I think, till you were 18 back then in Jersey. So that was pre-Wall Stadium days.
Yeah. It was phenomenal. Well done.
Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit.
I got a lot like that.
Oh, I'm sure. You probably have.
I gotta hold on
Thursday.
to them. I gotta save them.
Yeah, Throwback Thursday for days, as they say.
Got lots of them.
Moving on, let's talk about some fun stuff away from the racetrack. How did the hashtag Go Ryan start? And now you've got some merchandise. It looks like hand-drawn trucks with number 16. Got some T-shirts, some hats. How did that all come about?
I don't know. I just thought of it one day and made it.
And that's all stuff you handle, right?
Yep. Yeah, I do all of it. I made it. Honestly, I made it last year, so I had an 81 on it.
Okay.
But I never did anything with it, and I started showing it to like my friends and stuff, and they're like, "Dude, that's awesome. You need to make shirts." And they said they'd buy them, so I was like, "All right, fine." And finally this year I did it, and like 5 minutes after I posted it online, so yeah, I made it on my own on Photoshop and sent it out and got it T-shirts printed. Within 5 minutes, Dale Jr. retweeted it, and they sold out in like an hour.
That's all it needs.
The Junior effect.
Yeah.
That's all it took. And then so Amy bought a few, and then he tweeted a picture of him wearing it a few days later, and I was already sold out. I couldn't even do anything about it. And now I can't keep them in stock, honestly. But the hashtag just came from that, honestly.
Yeah.
I made the picture, and then I was like, I'm just going to put Go Ryan on there. All lowercase, just kind of silly. It works.
How is that? How does that work, kind of running your own little business there?
It's not bad. I enjoy it. It's something away from racing. Mm-hmm. And, I do all of it. The people at my brother's store help me do shipping because I just can't keep up with all of it, honestly. And he's got a full-fledged store there ready to shop. So I kind of piggyback off that a little bit. But yeah, I handle as much of it as I can and all the designs and ordering, and I do the website on my own, all that stuff.
So you're very hands-on as well.
Yeah. I like to control as much as I can.
While you can, right?
While I can, yeah.
Before you hit the big time and then everything, you just be told where to go?
Yeah, exactly. That's what we all strive for.
It's a nice problem to have. You also have, it's Stagger, right?
Yep.
A brand.
Mm-hmm.
How did that come about and kind of what?
Same thing. I was just bored. Me and Ryan Reed were like, we should do something out of racing.
And that's merch. That's apparel too.
Yeah, it's just like a racing lifestyle brand. And that's been a lot tougher just because I don't have a lot of time, and neither does Ryan, and it's really just us two. And same thing, like I built the website and order all the stuff and come up with the designs and things like that. And he helps me with all that too. But it's tough when it's just two guys that are traveling a lot. So I take my Mac with me everywhere, and I'm constantly doing stuff on it when I can. I don't know, just kind of just a little side project we mess with, and people like it. My brother wears a hat all the time.
Yeah.
Like constantly. He won't take it off, so that's pretty cool. I never asked him to wear it either. I just gave it to him one day, and he's like, oh, all right. Just did his typical, just kind of threw it behind him. Was like, whatever.
But he wears the Go Ryan shirt, I noticed.
And Cup driver throw.
Yeah. And you had said that you had to actually beg him, I guess.
The shirt, my shirt, yeah. I went down, so he's just hanging out at his pool, having a rough day, and I brought down a shirt and a koozie, and I was like, here, put this on, and I gave him the koozie. I put a drink in the koozie, and he just looked at it and looked at me and just stared at me, like I didn't even say anything or hand him anything. And I was like, come on, just do it, please, for me. And he's like, couldn't even be bothered to take his actual T-shirt off, just put it on over his T-shirt, and just stood there while I took a picture. Like, minimal effort was given.
And this picture is on Twitter for anybody that wants to see it.
It is. It worked though. People retweeted it, and
whatever you got to do for marketing.
Exactly.
Two more things for you, Ryan. We're recording this in Talladega, Alabama. Martinsville is 2 weeks away. The season is winding down here. Will this team and will you personally be disappointed if you guys can't get that win before the season's over?
No, I mean,
really,
this weekend, whatever, we don't really have control of much, honestly. I think we have a good truck. Super Speedways, really our downfall has been qualifying. I think I've qualified like 20th or worse for the past 3 that I've run for this team, both Daytonas and Talladega last year. So we're actually really happy with our single truck speed, which is, qualifying is going to be huge here. Kind of seems like it's tougher to pass with this new aero package with all the flaps in the bed. At least for me it was. So
practice seemed really interesting. I know Christopher Bell had one fly
He had one stuck open a few times. Mm-hmm. So I don't really know what that's going to do in a big pack. We didn't really run much because we don't have a backup truck. So we really focused more on single truck speed. So I mean, here you just try to stay out of trouble, be there at the end. Don't shoot yourself in the foot on pit road or anything like that. And Martinsville, I feel like we have a decent short track truck, but I don't think it's one that's got great speed. But we can control our destiny more so there and get it as good as we can and stay out of trouble and be there at the end. I think the big one for us will be Texas. Our mile-and-a-half program is really, really strong, and we'll probably take the same truck that we took to Vegas and Chicago, which has 2 poles on it. So it's a good truck, and it's all the latest and greatest stuff that we got. So, and we finished 3rd there, I think, 3rd or 4th the first race, and had a shot to win. So that's one I'm looking forward to, for sure. It's one of the few tracks we actually go to twice. So knowing what I need going into practice helps a lot, and have an idea of where we need to be setup-wise and all that stuff. Phoenix, I think, will be decent. Same truck we took to New Hampshire, so it's definitely got speed, and there's some things that we've done to make it better. And Homestead's its own animal. I don't really know what to expect there, honestly.
So it sounds like, obviously you want to win, but as long as you guys kind of end the season as you've been running.
Yeah, if we can keep this momentum going, which I think we will, I don't see us falling off for any reason. We're constantly doing stuff to improve. I think if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. So we're not just, we didn't just pack up the truck after Vegas and it needed a right side on it, so we had to do some body work, but we didn't just say, all right, that's good, we'll take that to Texas. We're doing as much as we can to make it better and improve on it so we can, go to Texas and have a real shot to win. The Ford truck's been really hard to beat. They've just had raw speed everywhere we've gone, and the 21 truck has been probably one of the most flawless as far as executing a race. I know he's got caught up in some trouble these past few races, but he's always there at the end if something crazy doesn't happen, and he's tough to beat as well, and he's a hard racer. So honestly, you got to be perfect and have really good speed. So I think Texas will be our best shot.
Last thing for you, end the year with momentum, hope maybe a win, go into the off season, and then what is the hope to? You had mentioned you don't know what 2008 brings, but is there a hope to try and do this again next year with the team, or are you going to keep obviously all your options open?
I would love to come back and do it again, and that's what we're working on, honestly. I want to be back, and I feel like we've gotten too good and gotten too close to just end it here, This is a team, I think, has proven that it's capable of winning a championship with limited resources compared to the big teams. And if we can go into the off season and hopefully get something done, sooner rather than later, and be able to build our inventory, rebuild some of the trucks that we don't like too much, that just don't have a lot of speed, and really gear up during the off season, which is 2.5, 3 months. If we can go into the off season and know that's what we're going to do, and have time and the resources to do it, I think we can, we can go out at Daytona next year and be as strong as we are now, and be a top 4 team all year, and hopefully go to Homestead with a shot to get the championship.
Well, Ryan, this is, as we mentioned off air before we started recording, this will be the most work you do all day on a Friday at Talladega.
I've run like 8 laps today, and I'm done.
So this is it. This is the most work you've done all day.
All day.
Hopefully it was just as painless as 8 laps.
Yeah, it was good.
All right. Thank you, Ryan.
Yep.
Once again, thanks to Ryan Truex for taking the time, as well as his PR rep, Josh Weinrich, for making it happen. Josh has been very supportive of this venture before it was even established, when I was still talking about it in the garage with many people. He was very open to it, and I was glad to be able to sit down with his driver very early on. Now for some other business, I feel as though 3 episodes in, I should probably start asking everybody if they would be so kind as to leave a rating and review on iTunes, or wherever you are seeing this podcast. It certainly will not only be greatly appreciated, but go a long way in helping me get a sense of how you all are taking to the Racing Writers podcast. So go, leave a review. How do you like that? That's my request for the week. So with that, I thank you again for listening, and I will catch you guys next time.